Hello, everyone. If you're joining, we'll give it you get credit for being early. So we'll give it a minute or two here, let people get logged in and settled, and we'll get this started.
Excellent. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Bob.
Okay. All right. You guys looking good, as always.
Yeah. Suck up.
Yeah. Even when that's true.
You can tell who the sales guy is.
Yeah. That's what I do.
All right, we'll give it another minute and then we'll go ahead and jump right in. I know we've got a lot we want to cover and want to be respectful of everyone's time as well. All right, well, I've got 32 after, so 2 minutes in. Let's go ahead and get this webinar kicked off. I appreciate everyone's time for joining us. I'm going to lay some ground rules here just for the next 45 minutes and orient you. I know this is a bit of a different platform than what many are probably used to. My name is Rich Kinney, Chief Clinical Officer with Veritas Labs. I'm joined on stage here with Mike Dickinson. I'll let him introduce himself in a minute. But you also are going to notice a third window. And one of the things that we're going to do over our time together here is we've got Bria, who's going to do some graphic facilitation to capture the key points of what we're talking about today around some of the challenges with healthcare staffing, how we're deploying AI to alleviate some of those. So you're going to see her capturing that live and as a good way to kind of take those notes and make sure that we have your email address. If you didn't register, if you're able to click the join link and it took you right into the platform, if you want a copy of this as a follow-up, make sure you drop your email in the chat so that we've got that and we can send a copy of this out to you. You'll also notice in the bottom right corner, there are windows for chat and for Q&A. Feel free to drop your questions in there as we go along. If we've got time at the end, we'll definitely try to comb through some of those. We can open up some mics and have some discussion and try and get some of your questions answered as well. So again, I appreciate you all joining us and both live and if you're taking some time later to watch this on a recording, you'll notice I talk a little fast, so you might not be able to put this on your 2x speed like some of your others, but I promise to give you some really good content here. So again, I'm Rich Kinney, Chief Clinical Officer with Veritas Labs. We're an AI firm that's creating an operating system for healthcare staffing. And I'm pleased to have this conversation with Mike Dickinson. Mike, you've become a rapid friend, and I've enjoyed getting to know you since I've joined the company. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and NHS to get us kicked off?
Sure. Thanks, Rich. I appreciate the comments. And did you say rapid or rabid? Because either one fits. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Well, we'll stick with rapid. Maybe until we get down to Alabama, we might have to avoid some of the more rabid.
There you go.
Creatures.
I got you. Well, thank you again. Thanks everybody out there for tuning in. Again, Mike Dickinson, Director of Recruiting for NHS Management. We are a management firm that owns and operates about 49 nursing homes across the Southeast, Missouri, Arkansas, Alabama, and Florida. My background is 25 plus years in recruiting and talent acquisition. Got my start the old-fashioned way with a company called Snelling Personnel. They gave me a desk, a phone book, a notepad, and a pen, and said, learn how to recruit. So been a long journey. The last 12 years has been on the corporate recruiting side. First with a technology engineering manufacturing company out of Huntsville called Adtran, and then migrated into education, and then over to healthcare with GMR, Global Medical Response, and now with NHS for the last 3.75 years.
Awesome. All right. Well, good. Well, okay. So that's one of the things why we wanted to get you all some time in front of Mike to tap into his expertise. So, been in this industry for, you said 25 years, right?
Yes.
I won't try to do the math for how that makes you, but that aside, well, why don't you start by kind of level setting with what the recruitment process looks like within healthcare? Maybe if we can start there to lay a little bit of a foundation of what that looks like, and then we can highlight what some of those pain points are along that journey today.
Sure. So in healthcare, and you know this as well as anybody, there are different segments within our industry. You've got the big hospital systems, you've got community hospitals, you have hospice, home health, and then you've got people like us, skilled nursing facilities, acute or subacute care, rehab hospitals. In our sector, a little bit different. We're a little bit slower to move, a little bit slower to adapt to change in the recruiting world. I'm blessed to work for an individual that believes in investing in technology. When I came here 3 years ago, we'll just kind of jump into the NHS life cycle in recruiting.
Okay.
So when I came here 3.5 years ago, we were still taking paper applications and posting jobs manually on Indeed for each individual facility. And that's 49 different facilities that we had no insight on, could not pull any data to look at applicants, the whole funnel. You got this whole big funnel. And so analytics was challenging. Had been trying to implement UKG for about 2 years. When I came on board in December of 2019, I guess, right in the middle of COVID. Don't know why I made that move, but here we are. We went live with UKG in July of 2020, and found out that it was a shock to our system. A lot of processes that we had to, a lot of process challenges that we had to overcome. Buildings were short-staffed. Administrators, DONs, all the people who were hiring managers really found it difficult to go into UKG, pull all the applications down, review the applications, schedule interviews. That was the biggest challenge. Nobody had time to do it. So went out and started looking at different opportunities to improve the technology. Looked at Calendly, looked at a couple of other companies that had scheduling pieces within their ATS or CRM. Came across a company called Chatter out of Tampa, Florida. Got their start really in food services. I think we were one of their first senior living clients. They use some conversational procedural AI in their self-scheduling and screening process. So that made a big impact, and put the scheduling piece for an interview onto the candidate side. So if they answered the screening questions correctly through the AI chatbot, then they were able to schedule an interview with the hiring manager at that facility. So that has really helped us just in the last, I think we've been with them full blown for about 2.5 years now.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So I'm hearing kind of some pain points around, right? Just that speed to lead, I think, is kind of what I've heard you call that before. Yep. And all, it sounds like, just, again, you're going from paper processes to implementing some tech, but still it sounds like there's a lot of manual touch points. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So probably the biggest pain point in this whole process is Indeed's quick apply. It's a great tool. People can sit at their desktop or laptop or phone or whatever and just click this apply button and hit 10, 15 different jobs that they're interested in. And, their information goes to our system, lickety split. So we capture their information, but our chatter program will send them a text back and an email back that says, hey, you're not quite finished with the application process. Please come back, re-engage, answer these screening questions, then you'll be able to book an interview. Well, in healthcare, that's still that speed to lead challenge. They may not see that email, they may not see that text blast until a day or two later. Well, in this climate, they could have already gone down the street and picked up another job at another healthcare organization.
Okay.
So that whole Indeed quick apply is a definite pain point and inhibits us moving down the line with those applicants.
Well, and I tend to hear this a lot with clients, just within healthcare, and I'm seeing this, I think, in every industry, is just these proliferation of point solutions, right? So it sounds like you've got some of the parts of the process that UKG, you've got them handling, some that Chatter handles, some that Indeed, but they're probably also, it sounds like they're also not all talking to each other, and that's leaving, if I'm hearing this correctly, the recruiter in the middle now with multiple systems and tools that they've got to try to navigate while they're dealing with a large volume of candidates that they can't keep track of. Am I capturing that kind of problem?
That's pretty close. So we'll take UKG out of it, since that's basically our HRIS, our record of truth for new hires. Chatter's career site has a feed with Indeed. So we post a job on Chatter, it goes to Indeed, so it talks back and forth. So there's the seamless piece there with Chatter, which is great. So we get a lot of applicants. Again, the pain point is that those TBD applicants, those quick apply applicants, they don't ever get back to us. So there's a gap there from the time that they submit that quick apply to when we're able to reach back out. So we got several of those, and constantly working to try to close that gap. We see somebody at TBD, we're able to reach out through Chatter because we got a phone number and an email address to try to contact them to get them to come back. So it can be time consuming. We've explored some technology with pulling all those phone numbers down from the employee's profile or the candidate's profile, loading them into a text solution like Trumpy or Text Us, and doing our own bulk texts. And doing some follow-up. So it still is a very manual process.
And my guess, I know when we were in Nashville last week together, and one of the things that we came across in conversation was just how close to 50% of applicant engagement, like and job searching, really occurs after hours and on weekends. It's probably not when your recruiters are working either, right?
Right. So the Chatter system is 24/7. It helps us catch those second and third shift nurses and CNAs. So it's a definite win for us. But again, if they're applying through that Indeed quick apply action, there's that gap that we got to close somehow.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And what's the implication? So you said it's very quickly, when you guys are able to get back around to following up with these candidates, that sounds like you're running into issues where they've already found another job somewhere else. So you're losing that lead. How do you, as a head of recruiting at NHS, have to answer for that? Like, what are the implications for this delay?
Yeah. Twofold. So it's kind of personal with me. My dad passed away in a nursing home during COVID. So I don't know what their staffing levels were. I know the nursing home, they're actually owned by a competitor now, and I think they made some improvements. But yeah, to me, it takes a personal I guess, hit. So I want to ensure that healthcare organizations, if they're a competitor or not, have enough staff to take care of the people that are in their facility, whether it be a nursing home or a hospital or hospice or whatever. Second piece is looking at this whole staffing challenge from a revenue standpoint. For example, in a nursing home, one nurse can take care of an additional 10 residents. We'll just keep the math pretty simple. An additional 10 residents for a nursing home, based on what some of our revenue numbers are, could end up being $1 million add to their revenue side, because of a resident staying in one of our nursing homes, $200-$300 a day times 10 times 365, it comes up to about $1 million in added revenue. So again, it's a twofold impact. You got to have enough staff to take care of the residents and patients, and then you got to make money, because we're in the business of keeping the doors open and paying our employees.
Yeah. All right. So all right, that's good. I appreciate that. So I appreciate you touching both on the kind of that return on health, right? There's there's an altruistic, there's being just a good citizen and a good company to want to take care of these residents and fill a need in our society, but also, so we talk about that as kind of return on health is how I like to always frame up that, and then return on investment as well. And so you're seeing both, not solving some of these recruitment challenges impact both sides of that coin, so to speak. Okay.
Absolutely.
So you also said you're very tech forward. You work for CEOs, very tech forward. So tell me about how you're seeing AI as an opportunity to close some of the gaps that you're articulating here.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, Chatter has their AI system, works great. Getting those interviews scheduled, doing the pre-screening qualifications that normally a recruiter might handle, or sourcing specialist. Chatter does a great job in the initial piece for us there, saved us a lot of time. As we evolve in this whole AI world, it's coming a lot faster than most people think. Being able to be connected with Veritas this past summer, learning what you guys are offering, we decided to jump in with both feet and start doing some testing of some data. And it's proved very valuable to us, because we've got this huge database of applicants that we've already paid for, that are sitting dormant back over here. And again, we'll touch base with some of those. We'll do some text campaigns through some of our other tools. But what Veritas brings to the table is the fact that Laz actually sits out there, works 24/7, 365, and never calls in. No drama, which I love, and is able to start working these dormant applicants, these silver medalists that we didn't hire. Maybe they did quick apply. We were never able to reach them, but we got their contact information. So Laz is starting to interact with those individuals. And AI is a freight train that's coming down the track. And if you're not an early adopter, you could easily get left behind.
Okay. All right. So that actually puts us in a good place. And I want to actually bring on one of my colleagues, Alyssa, who you work very closely with. It's a surprise guest for the audience, but Alyssa is our Chief Product Officer. And the reason why I wanted to bring her on is, as Mike and I were talking through this and realizing how overused the word AI is. And as Mike and I start to kind of unpack what is differentiated in Lazarus, in this tool that we've built, I wanted to make sure that we took some time to talk about what it is and do that in a way where we can show you, if that makes sense. So, Alyssa, welcome. Could you tell us a little bit and kind of open us up? So, you've heard Mike and I talking about this. He's done a great job laying out what some of the challenges are. what recruiting looks like today, some of those pain points around really getting that speed to lead, and the qualification of those candidates. We talk about in terms of warming up these candidates. So we can have recruiters spending time on the real value add activities we need a recruiter spending time on. So that brings us to, okay, well, let's throw AI at it. Well, let's be a little bit more specific about that. And there are different types of AI, and particularly what your team has been building is an AI agent. And so we're starting to hear about, agentic AI or AI agents. Could you just in layman's terms kind of break it down for the audience as far as what that is that we're talking about, and give them a little bit of that orientation?
Sure. Thanks for the introduction, Rich. So when we're talking about agentic AI, it's about how the AI is processing data and information and what it's doing for you within the context of its software. And so in some traditional companies that say AI, you kind of have to set up some rules. It'll kind of guide it a little bit. And it's still a very manual process to get set up. What's different about AI that has really started to transform over the last couple of years, or even more so over the last year, is the ability to utilize LLMs, which stands for large language models. And what that does ultimately is it gives the computer the power to speak very much in a way that humans are able to articulate and converse. And why that's powerful is it allows it to then ingest information and to then also push back out information in a way that we understand. So when I'm from the perspective of a recruiter, I might start my day with a goal in mind. I want to maybe reach out to X number of candidates to try and match them to a job. I have a very, very high level goal. And then I have a bunch of tasks and tools and knowledge that I'm able to use in order to accomplish that goal. And so I might have pieces of software. It might be a CRM, an ATS. It might be the ability to send an email or text. And even more simple than that, it's the ability to actually talk and communicate with whoever I'm reaching out to. So when we're talking about agentic AI, that's ultimately what it's doing. It is being guided by a goal that it has. It knows what that goal is within the context of its ecosystem. And then we provide it with a series of tools and knowledge that allow it to execute on that goal on its own. And so the difference here is that with a little bit of guidance and that knowledge, because it's able to communicate and parse information, it can then kind of operate without having to instruct it step by step on what it should do next.
Okay. So if I pause there for a second, what I heard Mike talking about earlier is where he's got all these systems, he's got the Indeed one-click apply, and then trying to hand that off to Chatter. Each one of those steps, you have to kind of manually go in and then tee that up and execute that next step. And so that can become very labor intensive.
Exactly. Yep.
Got it. Okay. All right. So yeah, so show us how, or tell us a little bit more about how this LAS AI agent is streamlining all that.
Yeah, let me share my screen. I think it'll be a little easier to explain.
Okay.
All right. Are you able to see a map?
Yes.
Great. So what LAS does is, again, going back to that, the knowledge and the skill set. So we take two pieces of information from into our database. So we take your existing talent pool, and once we kind of load in that talent pool data, we're able to kind of see an overall ecosystem of your existing talent pool. LAS now has context for your candidates, any information that you guys had up until that point. And then we also merge that with your organizational opportunities. So once that's linked, LAS can take those two pieces of information to start to fully execute on its goal of ultimately trying to understand your candidates, understand their intent to find a new role. So identifying more of those passive candidates, and then execute on having conversations with them to validate whether the information we have about them is true. So once these two pieces of data are linked up, you'll see here all these little blips are LAS now not only just engaging with the conversation of a singular candidate at once, but doing this tenfold, 200 times over. And then as all of these candidates' conversations are kind of coming in, we're able to parse that information into some profile data and use that to, again, match it to your opportunities. So if we take a look at a more granular level, I'll show a little demo of what this is going to look like from both sides of the experience. So on our left here, you'll have Jean's phone. This would be the candidate kind of interfacing with LAS. And then on the right, you'll see Jean's LAS profile. So this is what you guys would get access to on the other side. So we can see here that LAS initiated a text out to Jean. He did this because somewhere in the system, there's a piece of information about Jean's profile. Most likely it's something related to location. The last known location we had for Jean is where you guys have an open role and opportunity. So LAS decided it was a good candidate to reach out to. And you can see here the first question he's asking is if that candidate is still in Orlando. This is really to understand whether, we can get the most up-to-date information about this candidate, and also obviously if they move, maybe not the best candidate for you. So Jean responds that she's here, and LAS is able to take that text and respond in a naturalistic way. And while it's also crafting the message and sending out that communication, it's updating that profile on the right. So you'll see here, we now have a background insight that got added and updated because Jean confirmed that she's still in the Orlando area. He's still got some guidance and questions he wants answered to be able to execute on kind of his next goal or task. So he goes ahead and asks if her RN license is in good standing and what type of work setting she has. So basically trying to gain an understanding of her past experience. And the candidate just responds, yes, ER, I didn't like it. So pay attention here on the right to the profile as LAS's next message comes in. So you can see that it added both of those new insights to the profile, but it also was able to garner some sentiment. So it learned that Jean didn't really care for the ER setting and was able to store that in her profile as well. And not only that, but it's also able to use the context of the message that she's sending to respond directly to her message and to that sentiment. So you can see here, he's being a little empathetic and letting her know that she's really sorry that she didn't enjoy that, but would love to find something better for her. So continues to ask questions that he needs to get the answers that he needs. So he asks how many years of experience. Jean responds with 2 years. And then you can see over here, we're still updating this profile. LAS will also take into consideration some preferences for the candidate. So Jean wants to get started in November and make $40 an hour. So now this processing will take a little bit longer. The preferences are stored here. This whole time, LAS has also been measuring against all this new profile data against all the jobs and opportunities that you have in your database. And it's actually gotten that job suggestion down to 1. So this is a really strong match. We know this information is up to date. It has all of the context of your jobs and what you would be looking for within that role. So then LAS is able to send out that link and ask the candidate directly to apply and get a more formal process with that candidate going. So this is really going back to increasing that speed to lead and trying to capture them before they drop off.
Gotcha. Mike, how much time would that have taken for a recruiter to get to that point?
So that conversation could take, I don't know, if it's by phone, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. If it's by email, depending on how fast that individual could respond back to an email, text message, 5-10 minutes. But that's just a one-to-one conversation.
Right.
Yeah. The appealing thing about LAS is the fact that it has these conversations with many at the same time.
Yeah.
Whereas recruiters are just one-to-one.
Gotcha.
Unless they're really good at multitasking, and they might be able to do 2-to-1. But
And I'm thinking in terms of that asynchronous, right? Kind of going back and forth. Like you send a text, and okay, yeah, sending a text might take, a couple minutes, but waiting on the reply and then going back to that, like the amount of just time that you kind of commit to kind of that one candidate in terms of the hours or over a span of days, like what that looks like per recruiter. What I'm hearing is that really adds up.
Yeah, it does. And one of the really appealing pieces that I don't think Alyssa was able to show is the algorithm matching of candidates to particular jobs. Mm-hmm. So if I've got 5 or 10 candidates that LAS is engaged with that match the job 70% or higher, my recruiters, which is what we pay them to do, is to recruit, spend more time on those 70% plus matches rather than those that are 69 and below. Yeah. Not to discount those, they're definitely candidates, but these 70 and above, they're what we consider high value targets.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay. And Alyssa, did you have any more that you wanted to show or talk through? And I just wanted to kind of capture Mike's reaction to that first part you had showed.
Nope. That's okay. Kind of the high level overview of what LAS is doing. And like, as Mike mentioned, this is doing this at scale and it's very cyclical. So the more we learn about that candidate, it will continuously update that profile information. There's no more manual inputting. So again, LAS is reading through those conversations. It's transcribing what it's learning into the profile. So you no longer have to also have a recruiter going in and keeping their CRM and ATS up to date. It kind of knows where to put the profile information. Again, in this very similar way to how a human would. And then it kind of continuously runs a process in the back end that'll take a look at all the jobs and opportunities that you have open and find the best ones for the candidate at that time.
And so then if I'm thinking about it, once we have that candidate fully warmed up, so to speak, ready for that interview, then that's when LAS hands it off to one of the recruiters, sends them a notification. Hey, let's schedule an interview with Jean. She looks like to be a good match for this position, or
exactly
these few positions.
Okay. Yeah. So throughout this, a recruiter has access to these profiles, can see what engagements are happening, and we have a number of notifications in the system that get sent out to the recruiter. So we have multiple thresholds for that communication. So we don't want to bother recruiters with leads that LAS is not finding are really strong fits. So we don't really send out notifications for anyone who's not currently available or anybody who's not like a good fit from like a location perspective. But once it kind of answers some of those questions and discerns that it's a possibility for a good fit, it'll immediately notify that recruiter, keep the conversation going and keep trying to learn more to keep moving on that process. But if at any point the recruiter wants to interject, they're able to do that.
Gotcha. Okay.
So just want to pop in on what Elisa was just talking about. We flipped it on, turned Lazarus on August 18th, and did a small campaign of just 200 individuals that were in our applicant database that we had deemed as qualified, but we're still in that open stage. We had not had any contact with. So turn the agent on, and within an hour, I started receiving emails. I think we ended up with about 25 candidates that wanted to engage with a recruiter. And like I said, that was over an hour, 2-hour time span that we had 25 folks that we needed to talk to, we needed to reach out to. So if you're going to turn it on, be prepared, because if you don't act, again, speed the lead. But fantastic job has been, fantastic with our experience with Lazarus so far.
Yeah. So yeah. So tell me more about that. Kind of what your team's reaction to that has been with implementing that. And I guess that's what I was trying to quantify earlier is how much, if in a matter of hours we had 25 warmed up candidates ready to interview, how long would it have taken normally to get to 20? Like, you historically, right? You probably push out a campaign for a new post, like to warm up or get 25 candidates on a new batch of job descriptions. What would that have normally taken?
Again, we do those campaigns through text from time to time, but it's just that one snapshot in time. We
Right.
send that message out, and we'll get some responses back. We haven't gotten that level of response back before using our manual text campaigns. So again, if you're going to do this, you better be ready to jump on it. I think it caught me off guard because I didn't expect that kind of response.
Okay. Was this, and tell us about just kind of maybe the implementation. Maybe we can touch on that, what your experience was, because, we as vendors can always kind of come in and say, this is what implementation is going to look like. What did you expect with implementing a new AI solution? Let's maybe talk about that. What did you expect this to be like? And then what was your experience when we turned this on?
So with Chatter, which was our first foray into the AI world, they were really good. They were up and running in a couple of weeks. We had to load up job descriptions and make sure all of our chatbots were asking the right questions. So it was a really good implementation experience with Lazarus. Veritas, pretty much the same way. We went a little bit deeper into looking at qualifications that we built out in the job descriptions. So we wanted to make sure that Lazarus was seeing the right qualifications for each job, and then it pretty well took off. I think we looked at about a 4-week implementation time, which didn't mind. You guys were learning about NHS and all of our different jobs. We're focusing on RNs, LPNs, and CNAs, and various ancillary positions that follow along with that. So it was a good learning experience for me just to see what an LLM agent looks like. And so it was a 4-week time frame. Everything was up and running within that period. And once we went live, it's great. And you guys have been great about making, I guess, enhancements, improving the system as we've gone along. We've got a couple of superstar recruiters that are out there giving input into what the system we would like to see in the system. And anytime those changes have been requested, it's taken 12, 24 hours at most to get anything done. So yeah. Great experience with us so far.
Great. That's really good to hear. Well, what about, so we talk about kind of implementations and your experience. What have been some of the reactions? It sounds like very positive with your recruiters as well. When we talk about AI, there's a lot of conversation about just the fear of AI and, it's going to replace their jobs. Are recruiters seeing this as replacements, or are they recognizing ways in which it will help them do more of the meaningful parts of their jobs? Like what have those conversations been like with your team?
And we are a very lean organization. I've got 6, 7 recruiters, each in a different region. And you had a couple that came to me and said, is this going to replace us? And I'm like, absolutely not. If anything, it's going to give you time back in your day so you can focus on more of those important tasks that you need to be doing, like getting out, visiting community colleges, building relationships with the RN and LPN programs, working within the facilities to make sure they understand the hiring process and they know how to give a great candidate experience. So less time focusing on the unqualified candidates, trying to get them qualified in your mind. They may not ever hit that mark, but with Laz and they feel very reassured now that Laz is just a bolt-on piece to what we're doing right now that's going to make their job a little bit easier. And and help them become more efficient.
Yeah.
And again, focusing on those high value targets that we missed before.
So is that helping you think differently about your dormant database now? Right. We talk about that being such a underutilized asset. You've got these hundreds of thousands of candidates that are just sitting out there. Instead of going and continuing to pay for more new candidates, you've now turning this thing into a real asset for the company. How are you starting to think about that differently? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're heavy users of Indeed. I think we've got the addiction. And just looking back, I did a poll on the number of duplicate applicants that we have in our applicant database. Kind of scary. We are on a paper application model with Indeed. And for example, if I have an RN identified in Birmingham, Alabama, where we have 8 facilities, a single RN could qualify for all 8 RN charge nurse positions in each different facility. Plus, they might qualify for an MDS role, wound care nurse, admissions nurse. So that's 4 positions they might qualify for. So 4 times 8 facilities is 32. So I've got an RN that may have applied for 32 different jobs, but I'm getting charged 31 additional times for that same applicant, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
So I pulled some numbers, and our cost per application for CNAs 2024 is about $1.61, which isn't bad. That's pretty good CPA. But we had 4,638 duplicate applicants so far this year, which resulted in an additional $7,467 spent. Here's the eye-opening one. For nurses, we were spending $23 per application. We had 2,698 duplicate applications on nurses. This is just so far in 2024. I think I ran this at the end of July. So we spent an unneeded $67,450 on duplicate applications. So I'm looking at ways that I can reduce that spend on duplicate applicants. We've got a lot of data in our applicant database by using LAS to re-engage these individuals that we did not hire. I think it's going to end up helping us in a cost savings model.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. That's powerful. I appreciate you taking some time to look through some of those numbers and pull some of that. So both from a duplicate reduction and engaging those candidates, you've got increased efficiency of your recruiters. We've started talking a little bit about how you could see this starting to really help on the engagement front. So we've got about 5 minutes left. I want to kind of bring us home, but how are we thinking about this in terms of engagement and retention?
Yeah, so it all boils down to the candidate experience. If we make it easy for those applicants to apply, even if they don't interview with us, we have a way to get back in touch with those individuals to keep them warm, which again, we're focusing in on those high value targets now rather than spinning our wheels with individuals that, based on the questions or the information that LAS is gathering, there are people there that we might not want to talk to, and we can just ease those people out of our candidate over the hiring process. So again, efficiency, retention. If it's a great candidate experience, they're getting the information they need up front. We make sure they're welcomed warmly when they come into our facility to interview. That's going to help our retention. Gotcha.
Awesome. Yeah. So creating a good first impression with the engagement of these leads. And it sounds, I mean, that was the vision for what we could do with LAS and provide benefit to the organizations. And it sounds like we're hitting the mark on that with you all at NHS.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any Q&A questions in the Q&A. How hard? So Phil just dropped a question there. How hard was it to get engagement and retention data before we implemented LAS?
Quite difficult. In Chatter, we have a place to where we can make applicant notes. So, when we run a re-engagement campaign, not 100% of the time do we get accurate information put in those applicant notes, in that applicant notes section. Because we rely on the facilities to do a lot of that for us. We're a small team, but we're very lean. So if the facilities aren't giving us accurate information after that person interviews, or they contact the facility wanting to come in and schedule an interview, if we don't get that, then we don't know. And the unknown is a very difficult piece to wrap my arms around, because I don't like the unknown. I like to have data.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that I like that Alyssa showed briefly, was taking from that text conversation Laz is having, it's constantly updating those candidate profiles.
Yes.
So keeping that data up to date and current. Awesome. All right. Well, let me ask you this final question. We're at time, but what advice, if we've got other healthcare organizations that are looking at this, they're trying to think about, okay, how do they create some efficiency, tackle some of these challenges that you've experienced, but they're hesitant to adopt AI here. What advice would you give them? What would you say to, hey, look for this in a partner or a vendor, or what should they be on the lookout for to guard against?
Yes, there's a lot of vaporware out there. A lot of folks make promises that they can't deliver on, and unfortunately, that's part of the world that we live in. If you were looking at an AI solution, look at several, and look at your hiring process. What does your recruiting process look like from the time you get that job ad created to posted, to what your candidate experience process is from interview all the way to the hire stage? Ask them where their AI, or ask that company where their AI is most beneficial in that hiring process. Compare it to several others. Don't just settle on one. Talk to as many folks as you can. They're popping up all over the place. And if you have any questions, contact me. I mean, I'm more than happy to give any advice that I've had. We've been doing this for 2.5, almost 3 years now, and just started with Veritas. But I'm an open book, happy to give any kind of information and feedback that I can about my experience.
Awesome. Yeah, I've appreciated that, and that you've been a great partner, and I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us and help kind of give that business lens and that perspective, so users can, other users and people who are experiencing these challenges, can hear from you, not someone on the vendor side. We've got the great engineers and the domain experts, so to speak, but to really have you, who's in there living it every day, talking about the value of successfully applying AI, I think speaks volumes, and we really appreciate that. So
just to add one final piece there, for any TA leaders that are out there, I know several organizations that I've worked with, talent acquisition or recruiting was always looked as a cost center. If you can pull information, like for me in healthcare, it was a little bit easier because I kind of know what our revenue base is, how we generate revenue. If you can boil that down to how your talent acquisition or recruiting function, by acquiring the best talent for your organization, can contribute to the revenue side, then you've got half the battle won. And that's what it boils down to.
And gotcha. That's a great note to leave on, how to think of TA as a revenue driver, not just a part of the cost side of the equation. Awesome. All right. Well, Mike, thank you so much for your time. Everybody who joined, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to spend a little time with us and learn about how to apply AI to tackle some of these challenges. If you've not given us your email address, I would say if you're willing to do that, if we've not gotten that already from you, we can give you a copy of this, of the graphic that Bria was so great to create for us. And make sure you get a link to the recording as well. So again, thanks everybody. I hope you have a great day. Mike, thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rich. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.